So and we're going to talk about as many things as I can pick your brain about. We're going to talk about your books. Esteemed audience, if you stick with us, I promise I'll ask you about Star Wars. But first, I want to ask you about your 10 years. It's 10 years, right, as in the back of an ambulance as an EMT?
Paramedic.
What does that bring to your fiction, that experience, especially when you're writing so much about death and spirituality and the afterlife?
Yeah. Well, I think when you work in emergency services, and particularly in emergency medical services, you develop a relationship to death that's not what most people's is, because it becomes a part of your everyday life in a very real way. And, ultimately, I think you make a certain peace with it. You have to kind of, hard to describe, but you have to kind of like recognize it for the power that it is. You can't, like a medic and a doctor, any of these folks out there, we're not gods, and we don't really have the power of life and death at our hands. We can put it off for a while sometimes. But ultimately, it's very humbling to be in a field where people are dying in front of you. Because you can go through the protocol and you can get that IV and get everything into it on the time, in time and everything else, and the person might still not make it. And that's just the reality of the situation. And so, what that means is not that like it's not worth it, because of course you might actually bring them back, and many times we do. So you put everything you can into it, but ultimately, it's really in God's hands, and that is humbling and peaceful and something to really reckon with. And in 10 years, you do reckon with that. That's part of the process. But you also, but you also go through it knowing that, like, having really played your part in a situation, having really contributed to someone's healing process as much as you can, transforms your experience with that. So you're not, it's very different than if you were just like witnessing something terrible happening, right? That's like one particular relationship to trauma. But if you're actually invested in trying to make something better, trying to heal somebody, then you walk away cleansed in a certain way of the residual trauma of being around so much pain.
We've got guest hosts today. That's great.
Sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
Let me see if I can. I'm gonna hide in the bathroom.
We'll get a little tour here of
right?
where you're at today.
All right, how's this? Better. Nice.
Perfect.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that's been my basic philosophy around it, and it certainly has led to a deeper understanding, I think, of life and death for sure, but also an understanding of how systems work. And I mean, medics have a much deeper relationship to any given city that they work in than most people do too. And so, we see the underbelly of it. We're in the train system and the sewers and the high rises and the hotels and the hospitals and the prisons and the courts and the government offices. We're literally everywhere. Anywhere that a person can be, we have to be able to access it because that person can die. And so we see a whole lot, both of humanity and of bureaucracy. And that's definitely been an underlying theme of a lot of my work.
That makes sense. That would give you an absolutely unique perspective that most people could never hope to have, because you can go pretty much anywhere.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. And so I'm assuming that, other than and metaphorically, you don't think that you can bring spirits back through a different form of art like the Shadow Shapers do. But do you have a thesis in mind for what happens after this life? Do you have some sort of solace that you don't need to worry about that as much, or does it just make you more immediately focused on what you have in front of you, because any day you could be the person that makes that call?
Oh, well, in my spiritual practice, we deal very explicitly with ancestors. So, there's an altar up in my house for my ancestors. And when I cook, they get food. And when I make coffee, they get coffee. So, my relationship with the dead on that end is a very healthy and harmonious one, that's my philosophy around it too. And that is a lot of my, that goes into my work a lot, like it's always really struck me just how negative and how almost explicitly and solely negative a lot of the Western canon in particular is with its relationship to the dead. Like, they're almost exclusively just trying to kill us and like get revenge for something. But that's not my experience, and that's not a lot of people I know's experience with the dead, because our ancestors have gotten us here, and thought so that we could have what we have and lift us up on a regular basis. And we work with them and meditate with them daily. So I wanted that on the page. I wanted a kind of a reclamation of the ghost story to be something potentially more uplifting.